My objective today is to try and get the Tyvek installed and the windows installed in the addition. Now, where the addition ties into the house, I want to try and overlap the Tyvek, which means I'm going to have to pull some of the siding off just enough to get the Tyvek underneath it. I also want to try and make the transition between the addition and the house as far as the siding is concerned. I don't want it to be so obvious, so I'm going to pull a few of the smaller pieces off and put longer pieces on there when I get to the siding. I'm almost always listening to something when I'm working. I have some of my favorite podcasts that I listen to, but I really try to listen to books specifically about history. I'm not really interested in politics or too much fiction. But I enjoy listening to things that help me appreciate where I'm at in life and really the blessings that I have at this particular time. I recently started the book Code Talker. I've listened to this book once before. This is a book specifically about the group of Navajos that single-handedly changed World War II with their ability to send codes at a very rapid pace that the Japanese were not able to decipher. Now, this book is written by one of the actual code talkers. There's been a number of books written on the subject. But the guy that wrote this book has since passed away, but he talked about his life growing up on the Indian reservation. Without getting into it too much, the bottom line is his grandparents lived in a brush hut for most of his life. He talked about how he could remember how cold the winters were and how warm the summers were in their hogan that was basically made out of brush. He talked about one summer where his dad and his uncles took the time to go and cut down the logs necessary to make an actual hogan. Now, the hogan was not very big. He talked about how his grandmother would have fires right in the center of the room and the smoke would trickle out a hole in the ceiling. But he talked about how comfortable it was. Now, I'm not in any way trying to compare my struggle to that particular struggle, but what it did cause me to do is have gratitude for my circumstances. My best friend for a time growing up was a kid named Brian who was full-blooded Navajo, and I was given the opportunity to spend a spring break with him and his family on the Navajo Indian Reservation. Looking back on the circumstances, I'm not quite sure if I'd send one of my kids out there, but the truth is I learned a lot. I was fairly young, somewhere around 4th grade, and I remember that his grandfather's ranch had no running water, had no electricity, yet they all seemed to be fairly happy. I remember eating mutton and not caring for it a whole lot. I also remember I was the only white person there. His grandfather spoke fluent Navajo, not a lick of English. And looking back on it, it was one of those moments that probably influenced me and caused me to consider who I am. Now, a short time later, my friend Brian would move away, and I've never seen him since. But I've thought about that experience many times. Still to this day, I think it's less than 40% of homes on the Navajo reservation have electricity and or running water. I recently watched a short documentary about a company that's trying to get in there and help put solar panels in and at least provide light and a way to charge cell phones. Now, one particular day on this spring break, I was with Brian and we were out wandering around, and I watched Brian get into a fight with another Navajo kid. It was a pretty violent fight. They were comparable in age, but nonetheless, it was still a pretty violent fight. Now, growing up with my brothers, I wasn't unaccustomed to a good fight, but this was a little bit different. I asked him why it happened, and he wouldn't tell me at first. He tried to tell me that that particular kid was from a different tribe. Now, later on, he told me that that was actually his cousin. And that particular cousin saw Brian as a sellout because him and his mom had left the reservation. The bottom line is I don't understand that struggle, but on some level I was influenced by it. As I listen to these books about history and about struggle, it helps me greater understand just how good I have it. In spite of how hard my challenge might be at this particular moment, it's all self-induced. I've brought this on myself. This is by far the hardest thing I've done, but that's a relative term. In spite of the amount of work that I still have yet to get done, I don't dread what I'm doing. I look forward to it for the most part. If there happens to be minor changes that are made along the way, this is no big deal. The bottom line is everything about my so-called struggle is a blessing. I'm grateful for the opportunity I had to do this. I've learned so much along the way. This has by far made me a better person. Now, as long as I can keep my wife and kids warm and still have a pretty firm grip on the amenities that we're used to, we'll be fine. Once the house is done, once the shop is built, the next focus will be learning how to live sustainably with what we have to work with. I can't wait to start figuring that out. But at the end of the day, I'm grateful for the challenge. Okay, everything's done. The house is officially dried in. I'm waiting on one window, so I didn't cut the opening for the small bathroom window. Technically, I'm ready for siding. Still trying to decide if I'm going to jump into that. It went from being about 38, 40 degrees today to probably 12 degrees right now. I can barely talk. My nose and my mouth are frozen. It really cooled off, so if I can find a warm day in the next week or two to finish the siding, I'd love to do that. I'd love to get it off the ground right there. But the priority next week is going to be the shed over the water tank. I want to know that if we have to get in here that we're going to be able to have water. Now that the place is dried in, I can finish electrical, get it insulated, and I feel confident that it's going to hold the heat well enough that just using that fire, it's not going to have a potential for freezing overnight. So anyway, first part of next week, I'll dive into that shed, get that done as fast as I can. we have another week full of week that's supposed to be nothing but snow. Really not much has accumulated. It was actually a muddy mess earlier today. The roof's doing great. Roof's not leaking. You know, I put that roof down because I liked the look of it. I really wanted that other tin, that really tight corrugated tin. That was part of it, and I was gonna use that tin on the addition, but I think I'm gonna use it on the front porch now. So I used what I had to get by. I'm not just trying to throw the thing together. I'm trying to go for a look. The roof is used tin. I didn't want to put new tin up against the used tin. So, you know, there's a little bit of a method to my madness, believe it or not. I'm not just looking for the cheapest deals out there. I'm trying to make it look like it's been here a while, I guess. But regardless, no leaks, no nothing. It's really noisy. The ice slid off, the snow slid off the roof earlier, and if you're not ready for it, it'll scare you. So we'll have to get used to that. But anyway, Monday I'll get on the shed and see how far I can get next week on the siding, I think.